Let's turn our attention now to the Canadian men's national team, guys. They're back on the pitch. Last time we saw them was in the summertime, about 4 months ago. Gold Cup, Mauro Biello, interim head coach. They're taking on Japan October 13th, right here on One Soccer. Wakey, wakey. We'll get you started at 6 a.m. ET. For those on the West Coast, you're probably still awake, so just don't go to bed. Just stay wakey, wakey, and watch. So what do you want to see? In particular, this has been a big one, especially with so Stefan Eustáquio, as we know, is the latest to be injured, and he's out of the squad. He picked up a knock with his team, FC Porto, on Sunday night. We already knew Tejan Buchanan wasn't going to be here due to injury. So that leaves a pretty gaping hole in that midfield. We already knew that this was something that, you know, was something that's building, and Atiba Hutchinson has stepped aside, and it looked like Eustáquio and Ismail Kone were kind of becoming at least the two stalwarts. So when you look at that midfield in particular, Jordo, how do you want to see Mauro Biello handle it?
I think for me, for a while, I've wanted to see, since World Cup qualifying a bit, but definitely at the World Cup, just a midfield that doesn't get overran. I think also, too, what happens is when you're playing with two in the midfield, it just seems like they get outnumbered. Literally, you're playing two midfielders against three. I would love to see three, but I'd love to see two down and one up, 2 6s, 2 8s, whatever you want to call it, but just two anchors to really pivot and give some stability to that Canadian attack. And then one guy roaming who's free. That could be whoever he wants, or so, whoever it is, but just that balance between the midfield. Because I think sometimes when you have a Eustáquio, obviously he's not playing tomorrow, when you have him trying to be the connector and the distributor and also the guy who's crunching tackles, it's a lot to put on one man's shoulders. I want to see two people taking over. Say almost, this is your right side, this is your left side, you kill it. And then you can start giving freedom to other players that go forward and transition so well for Canada. So just want to see a bit more of a 2 down, 1 up in the midfield, that triangle, and guys just really stabilizing the middle of the park, which is so important moving forward.
How are you feeling about it, Wheels? Is he muted? Are you muted?
Nice.
You're muted, Wills.
It's great stuff.
There you
You're
go.
Welcome. It's probably a nice change for our viewers and listeners. Eustáquio is obviously a big loss. There's 5 midfielders that remain in this team, and I'm not sure which player is going to step up. It sounds like Mathieu Choinière is going to get some kind of look. I'm not quite sure if it's going to be from the start or coming in late on in the game. But Choinière is a player, like Mauro Biello knows the Montreal contingent. Kone, Choinière, Piet very well. It wouldn't surprise me if he leaned on those 3. Osorio's in the mix. The one that I'm interested in is Harry Payton, because looks like his career has come back to life here at Motherwell. He's had a really good start to the season, played excellent against both Celtic and Rangers, and did score a match winner already this season. And my other question about that position, because there's not a whole lot of depth there, does Biello see Moise Bombito as a midfielder like John Herdman did? Like, Bombito is a defender for Colorado. It always seemed a little bit of an awkward fit, but I think we'll get some kind of confirmation whether he plays or he doesn't play or what things look like based upon Biello's impression of him, and I'm curious as to what that might be.
Ollie.
Yeah, I mean, I was harping on about this all summer that, like, I don't think against the top teams you can play Eustáquio and Kone as a 2. I thought they just got overrun by the United States in that Nations League final. And I don't like, Kone is a great player and he's a difference maker, and I don't think you want him in the trenches having to do that kind of work in central midfield anyway. So I'm hoping that we see an adjustment from that. Obviously, we couldn't really see it at the Gold Cup because just none of the normal midfielders were there. I do think there could be a role for Saint-Pierre. Like, Herdman seemed to have doubts as to whether his game would translate to the international level again against those top teams. But if he can do what he does well, which is win the ball and lay it off to someone else, and I don't say that to like underestimate it, it's a nice quality and skill set to have. I think there's a role for him alongside Eustáquio in that centre midfield. Again, it's just about how it translates when you're playing against great players, you know, like Valverde with Uruguay last year, or Modric in Croatia in the World Cup. So that'd be interesting to see. Choinière as well, I think, is a useful player in that regards. But they just have to find someone, in my opinion, who can kind of add a bit more solidity and stability alongside Eustáquio.
I'm thinking based on what he said about Davies, it's going to be. I'd be shocked if it wasn't a 3-5-2. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but that just sounds to be.
Yeah, I think so to with that 3-5-2, it's just how you play it, right? Is it a Harry Payton maybe next to Sam Piette? Like, I just think people talk about tactics all day long, but it's really just about principles, right? Even if it's 1 down or 2-4, whatever it is, it's just having some type of anchor. That could be Sam Piette, that could be Chouanier. I agree with Ollie in terms of Kone. It's just that je ne sais quoi, he's that nice talent. He's a bit roaming to get that defensive responsibility might kind of stifle him a little bit. But just in terms of if you're going to play a middle block or you're not going to go and press, just have 2 guys that know their role and can really break up play, because then I think Canada grows into games.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Kone as well. I think we all saw him as a bright light, especially when he came on at the World Cup, just didn't look out of place. But we also know that he hasn't been getting a lot of playing time with Watford, and we'll see if, how that affects him and translates to the national team, because this is somebody who could, do remarkable things, I think, for the national team in that midfield. Let's get through some quick ones here. And just whose stock do you think will rise the most under Biello, Ollie?
I think it could be Piette. Like, he's talked him up, and just in terms of those qualities that I talked about a minute ago, and how they can help a team, even I think as the level goes up and the standard goes up, if you have a player who can carry out that kind of job effectively and just knows his role and is disciplined and doesn't try and really play above his station in that way, that can be a useful player. So I suspect Piette could have a more prominent role than he did towards the end under Herdman.
Wheels?
Don't jump at me here. Take it easy on me, guys. What about Alphonso Davies for the national team? Not him as a player, but him for the national team. He had that wonderful moment against Panama. He scored against the World Cup. But I think that there's consensus here that Canada haven't been at their best or being able to bring out the best of Davies for the national team in recent games. When they're playing against minnows and the lesser likes, Davies' talent, rises above the rest. But when you play these really good teams, you need to play within a team system, and Davies playing his natural position, a defined role. I think he can really flourish here. Remember, when Davies went out with the myocarditis, that's when Canada went on that World Cup run and punched their qualification. So I still think that there's another gear to hit for Alphonso. As good as he is, the best left back in the world, I think that we could see him maybe develop into something even more special with a clearly defined role with the national team.
I get where you're going with it, because that is what we've been talking about, is we felt like Herdman never really found this position for Davies on a consistent basis that always brought out the best. So I am curious to see what Mauro Biello is going to do with him. Okay. I'm working with that. Jordo?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Ismail Kone. I know we mentioned him already, but this guy's still a teenager. He's still a kid. I think every time that he comes into camp, eyes are on him. The world's watching as well. I know for Watford, he's not getting as many minutes as he would like. You alluded to that already, Andy. But when you get to play on the world stage, all eyes are on you. If you can go and put a game together, a half together, 60 minutes of football together, his stock rises every time he touches the ball, every time he plays, just based on his age, but how quick that he's just come into the mix of things. So for me, it's Ismail Kone.
And you know what? I love good people, and I love when good things happen to good people. And Kone's good people. He's just he's lovely, love his story, great guy, and I'm sure at some point we'll be sharing a lot of it. Right, being raised by his mom and wanting to do everything for his mom, and crying as well. Finding I was going to the World Cup. He's just a lovely human being. But whose stock do you think will fall the most under Mauro Biello, Ollie?
Well, I hope no one, because it's the coach's job to get the best out of all of his players. But if there's one where I don't know if it's stock falling so much as maybe he won't start as frequently as I think he has done in recent months. I'm kind of wondering about Jonathan Osorio, just for some of the reasons we talked about before. Again, like if you do let Kone play with a bit more freedom, if you're still going to be committed to the front two, which we'll see with Larin and Davids, where does Osorio fit into that is maybe a bit more of a question. That may, again, just be more to do with Kone's rise more than anything. But at this stage of his career, could his role reduce slightly? That seems like a possibility to me.
Wheels.
Could be a massive cop-out answer, but anyone that wasn't named to this squad, to be honest with you, it was his first chance to go out and pick the players that he wanted to be involved in. There's some significant names, I think some names that people really like that weren't included on this list. Like, look, if I'm a center back, there's open competition with Luc It's going to be a ton
Diffuser rolls.
on the Diffuser rolls. It's like an 18-year-old. Happy birthday! It's his birthday today. Comes into the team. I think that they'll give him a real opportunity to grow into a role in this. There'll be a plan where eventually a Steven Vittoria makes way. I'm not sure if it's right now when you have Nations League games, which are qualifiers for Copa America upcoming. But these are the types of positions. If I'm a player in the squad and I'm on the wrong side of 30, I'm kind of looking over my shoulder saying, what if? But the fact that a player like Scott Kennedy wasn't included in this team, just look at all the players that weren't. Those are the ones right now I think are going to be on the outside looking in, as long as Biello's manager. But how long is that going to be? So a lot to be determined here.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's. I was actually thinking this the other day when I was, once again, and Mark Anthony Kaye hadn't been called in for a while. And then I thought of Lucas Cavallini, like all these names, right, that we just kind of got used to. I was like, okay.
I think Cavallini is injured. But
yeah, oh, well. So if he's
still maybe a fair answer.
But you just wonder, right, when you look at some of these other guys in Brim and he obviously wants to give some other guys a chance in that attacking position.
Jebison could come into the fold, another attacking player. Where's Koleosho's international future lay? So there's some of those positions, like you can see different pathways where the competition is going to be a lot steeper.
Interesting. Okay. Jordo.
Yeah, no, I agree with Ollie. I actually put Oso just because of when I'm looking at the midfield. And it's a peculiar thing with national teams because you want to get your best, most threatening players on at all time. And if you're playing with three in the back, that means you're probably more inclined to play with two strikers. That means David and Larin are probably playing. So what does that three in the midfield look like? Maybe that's a time where Oso's getting 30 minutes and he's not playing a full game or majority game that he's used to. So just naturally at the age he is, and again, I don't think 30, 31 is old, but I just think that's the time where you need to be playing consistently. And if you're coming off the bench, I think naturally you're stock wise. But I really don't like this question. I just want everyone to be but if I had to answer, this is where I'm going with it.
But isn't this the case now?
Can we make another recommendation for CPL award over 35 or over 30?
Yeah,
over 30.
Don't forget us geriatrics over here. But the thing is like this is what happens when you expect a lot of a team as well. And you just start to become a little bit more ruthless, right? And who should be on the team and who shouldn't and who gets the call and who doesn't. And, and you want that depth. Here's the thing. It's almost like be careful what you ask for. You want a team that has more depth. You want more players playing in higher leagues. Well, then that creates competition. And that inevitably means somebody is going to be left out. So you're always, when you come to camp, having to impress your coach. These are just the natural conversations that happen. The bigger, you hope, your federation grows. And the more the expectations happen. This, we're not handing out participation ribbons here, gentlemen. There's also a 2026 Home World Cup that's coming around the corner. Let's go. Milan Borjan will be the captain for the game against Japan. We do know this, but we also don't know if he'll be the captain moving forward in general. So I guess, Ollie, are you kind of getting the sense that that's still up for grabs? But given that Milan Borjan will be wearing the armband, this is somebody who Mauro Biello trusts.
Yeah, I think what this shows you, I don't think he will be the long-term captain, and I think that'll be for the permanent manager, whether it's Biello or someone else to decide. But it shows you that Borjan is almost certainly, I think, going to start this game, right? If he's going to make him, if he's going to announce him as captain. That will be a contentious decision, I think, with a lot of people. Personally, look, I don't want to sound disrespectful to Milan Borjan at all because I think he played a phenomenal role in getting to Qatar and was a huge part of that story, both for his performances on the pitch and his spirit off it. And I also don't want to talk about who I think is going to be better in 24 or 26 because it's years away and it's difficult to project and you don't know what could happen. I think right now today, if it was me, I'd play Max Crepeau. I just think he is a different type of goalkeeper who can help Canada evolve the way they play. But Borjan remains playing at a good level with Slovan Bratislava. He is a leader in this group. So if he's going to play, then I don't think it's a huge surprise he'll be wearing the armband.